Welcome to Unprompted with Diana Kelley and Jimmy Chunga. Powered by Noma Security. Secure your AI everywhere.
So, Vegas, I keep trying to educate you on the ways of Vegas, and you keep reminding me, you're like, hey, dummy, I lived there. I used to live there. No, you would never say, you're way too nice. You're way too nice. That's just my ultra-sensitive interpretation. You know what I'm saying? Because Diana's like the nicest person ever. Would never ever say that. The pride of New Hampshire. You know.
The pride of New Hampshire. Yeah. Who did live in Vegas temporarily. I did. So, I was on a project for Bally Gaming when I was at KPMG.
This is so cool. So I worked in radio. You worked in radio.
Yeah.
Which is very cool. I live in Vegas. You lived in Vegas. And not only did you live in Vegas, like this is, I live in a city called Summerlin, which is kind of on the west hills area of the Las Vegas Valley. You lived right in the heart of, arguably the heart of Las Vegas, which was Caesar's Palace.
Yes.
You actually
for 6 weeks. Yes.
You lived in Caesar's Palace.
That's right.
What was that experience like living in Caesar's Palace?
It was long enough ago that they had the new tower and the older, sort of like the vestige of 60s and 70s Vegas, where you'd have like a hot tub right in the middle of your bedroom.
Oh,
like
yeah,
not in a
baby.
bathroom, but like in the bedroom.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So I initially had one of those rooms where it was kind of it was classic. I got to experience some classic Vegas.
It's like the Evil Knievel.
Forever.
Yeah, the Evil Knievel Vegas, where he was jumping the towers and killing himself and, breaking every bone in his body trying to do that. The Elvis Caesar's Palace. Yeah. So did you ever do that? Did you ever I'm tired of working. I'm just going to hop in the hot tub for a little while. Right in the middle of my room.
No, because we actually went into the office. So we went to the Bally Gaming office. Yeah. So, which is down off the strip. So we would actually commute from the hotel.
A few blocks. Wow, how things have changed, right?
Yeah.
Things have changed. Well, that's very cool. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Unprompted. We are your hosts of this messy little podcast. I'm Jimmy Chunga. I am Diana Kelley's smart aleck buddy, who she's mentoring. I know some about tech. But when it comes to cybersecurity, this is, I don't want to say it's brand new, but I definitely am not even on the radar screen with how much Diana knows about this, being a CISO for Noma Security. So we talk about everything that's, pretty much everything AI or cybersecurity related. And then we also talk about New Hampshire and we talk about Vegas. We talk about
Vegas.
Some other fun stuff. It is that time of year. This is, I think being in your position, I wonder if you ever get tired of this, because nobody ever asks me, unless it's music or, guitars or something like that. Nobody ever asks me, hey, what's going to happen next year? Yeah. Give us some, I'm a big Disney guy. I love Disneyland. I'm a big Walt Disney fan. I love studying him and
Disney World. Do you go to Disney World very often?
Never been.
Okay.
Never been. Not even once.
As a Disney fan, you've never been to Disney. Okay. I feel like you should.
Yeah, I know. That's kind of a big blind spot if you're a Disney fan. No, I'm just kind of a purist. I just go to Disneyland, little Disneyland, and just,
So did you know there's a Tokyo Disney?
Oh, yeah. And a Paris Disney and
I've been to Tokyo Disney.
Oh, really? I hear it's beautiful.
It is. It's beautiful. And they have like a sea, like one of the parks is about sea. In any case, the really like amazing thing, and I didn't know this when I went there, is that they have like a Disney version of Cape Cod. And Cape Cod is is off of Massachusetts. I'm a New Englander.
Yes.
So it was wild. It's like I turned a corner and it was there were lighthouses and lobsters. They
got lobsters. You get a lobster roll there.
Yeah, you felt very down, like sort of a Cape Cod, Maine kind of like Disney-fication. But yeah, it was really fun. I took so many pictures. And it's just, I was completely fascinated by the fact that they would have like a New England seaside Cape Cod kind of.
So I'm a former Bostonian. We have that in common as well. I lived there for a short time. And yeah, the only thing I could think of is Cape Cod. Do they have people there yelling at you? You can't park there. You can't park there. You got to move that car.
That's isn't the classic. Don't park the car in Harvard Yard.
Yard.
So I think it's maybe in Harvard Yard they have the people.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's very cool. No, I hear Tokyo Disney Seas is beautiful. Right.
Yes, Disney Seas. That's it. That's what it's called.
Yeah, and
it was. It was very cool.
It's a bucket list thing for sure. As is Disney World, right? But I love the Haunted Mansion. Haunted Mansion is probably my favorite because it's got all the tech. It's the most technologically advanced. It's just crazy. They've got all this stuff. But they have Madame Leota. Do you know who Madame Leota is? Madame Leota.
Is she like the floating head and the crystal ball? Okay.
Yeah. Ding, ding, ding. Yeah. Good job, Diana. So this is where I'm going with this today. I'm going to ask you to be Madame Diana and predict what's going to happen with AI in 2026. So this whole episode of Unprompted, hey, what's up? Thanks for being here, everybody. Unprompted is going to focus on Diana's AI predictions for 2026. Can we do this? I love throwing you curveballs, but I would think that out of all the episodes we've done so far, this was probably the least curveball that I've given you because in your position, everybody asks you, or as I like to say, everybody asks you. So let's get into this here. We have a lot of predictions for 2026. I'm assuming now. How many of these have you done so far for the year 2026? First and foremost.
I think I've had 2 other responses.
So far.
People have asked me about it. Yeah, but it's true. December is when it tends to really pick up, and sometimes people will even do it in like early January. We're like, hey, So
I mean, you can really get away with this.
So there's
I would
still
say,
time.
Yeah, there you go. So you'll still do more. You should just tell everybody, listen to Unprompted. See, you'll get everything in it. So give me let's set the table here. Give me one AI cybersecurity norm that you feel will be disrupted in 2026, because there's so many people talking about the AI bubble, and the AI bubble is going to burst. Yeah. We talked about on the last show. I said, will the AI bubble burst? You went, I don't know.
Yeah.
Which was like my favorite answer of the whole episode. I don't know. So what do you think will be disrupted? What AI norm is going to be, blown apart here?
Yeah, looking at AI and cyber, and there's sort of been this norm of we always can put humans in the loop, and I recommend it too. And we need humans in the loop.
Right.
AI, going off on its own for 100% of what it does, that's not going to be viable.
Right.
But I think what's going to be challenged is how human in the loop can we be, because we're really seeing this desire to have fully autonomous systems, agents that are going to be making thousands of decisions, every minute. So as companies deploy more and more autonomous AI agents that are driven by the quote reasoning of the LLMs, it's going to be harder and harder for humans in the loop there. So I think that we're going to need to have, obviously humans for very big decisions, very big impacts, impact decisions and approvals. So in other words, if you're going to transfer $10 million, you may not want that as an AI. That's something you may want to have a human or 2 humans in. But for smaller decisions, do we quarantine a person right off the network, a user or a laptop off the network? Do we change the configuration over on that, in that within the deployment in the cloud, all those kinds of things.
Right.
I think that we're going to see, these, do I send this email or not? We're going to see a lot more automation. We're not going to see humans being able to keep up at machine speed with the scale of what we're going to see in terms of, autonomous. So I think that in that case, so we'll see. Humans can't always be the final check. They still should be. I'm not saying let's get humans out entirely, just for very specific cases. And for some of this really at scale decision making, we're going to have stronger guardrails, into the agentic system. And we're already seeing that. So that's actually, so it's a prediction, but I'm also sort of reading tea leaves that have been, that are there too, which is that we're already seeing organizations putting much tighter guardrails in, and they're using 3 sort of types. They're using deterministic software rules, our nice old classics,
right.
for policy enforcement. They're using machine learning, so traditional predictive AI, machine learning classifiers. Is this right? Is this not right? Does it look right? Is this pattern something I recognize? Does it look anomalous? And then also using generative AI or LLMs to monitor each other. So in some cases, for example, taking pre-processing an instruction before it gets to the reasoning LLM, it goes through a preprocessor LLM who decides, should I pass this along or not? So yeah.
Okay. Now that kind of not, because I was going to ask you, one of the things that, in addition to the AI bubble that we've heard a lot of, right?
Yeah.
Over the past, especially at the end of 2025, is regulation. And are we going to regulate? I mean, we're kind of headed in that direction with the discussion. I mean, yes and no. But do you think we'll move farther into the realm of regulation in 2026? Or do you think the discussion will continue and there will be no ground gained either way, for or against AI regulation?
So this is one that kind of took a bit of a curve just this week. I think it was Wednesday.
Oh, really?
This week. Yeah.
Okay. I've not heard. So this is great. This is great for me.
So the EU AI Act it was sort of the OG of the AI Acts. It had a lot of teeth in it, and it entered its enforcement phase last year, but it's it's getting stronger, and people were really looking at having to be in compliance with it, and it being enforced. And this week they announced that they're going to delay implementation of some of the act, some of the things around some of the riskier aspects of it, in part because of pushback from technology companies. So with the EU and the EU AI Act now being a little bit delayed, and they're talking about that it's simplification, that it's not going to be, that it's not that they're not going to enforce things, but they're going to try and
they want a better
things.
definition for it, right? I mean, is that really what you're saying? Is that it's not that they're against it, they just want to define it better?
Define it, and I think that there's this push-pull with regulation between how do we have innovation without innovating so rapidly that we haven't thought through the risks carefully and put in controls or guardrails too. So so with the EU Act, with the delay in implementation just this week, I think that's going to be interesting. You have seen across Asia, there's Japan's AI Promotion Act, South Korea's AI Framework Act. They're all about transparency, risk-based controls. So I don't think that there's going to be a complete move from enforcement and regulation of just, hey, everybody just do whatever you want.
Okay.
But I do think that there's a lot of focus on ensuring that the controls that are being put in place by any of these are really around helping to secure and safeguard without really blowing innovation, and because innovation is just such a big concern for so many.
And what I've noticed about tech companies is if the EU, so goes the EU, so goes the world. I have noticed that for some reason, I don't really know why, but this goes outside the realm of AI as well, that if the EU adopts something, whatever that standard, whatever that watermark is, the United States usually follows pretty quickly, as does Asia and other countries that are super tech. Israel would be one of these, where you've just got a ton of technology coming out of Israel. This is so I'm assuming that all eyes are on the EU then. So I'm assuming that the United States is kind of holding back on their own regulation. Is that true? Or are they kind of saying to themselves, okay, maybe we just wait and see what the EU does before we do anything at all? Because I've seen that happen before.
And we saw the U.S., we had a change in administration in the U.S. recently. And so that's actually impacted because the previous administration
so it's not the same.
Right. It was going in one direction. The current administration is making their own review.
Okay.
So that's it. So we don't have a big federal AI regulation yet, but there is appetite in the United States for, traceability, accountability within AI, transparency, and California did enact the Transparency and Frontier Artificial Intelligence Act. It was a little bit softer than some people had wanted, but there is movement in the different parts of the United States, with, California leading. But I think that right now, it's just because we switched administrations so recently that may be why we've seen a little bit of a longer delay in the U.S. But there have been EOs, and there certainly is awareness and there are eyes on AI. So I don't think we're going to be without a federal regulation for too long, but maybe not in 2026.
So I go back and forth on this, and I'm surprised that I do, because when I take a look at how dangerous this could ultimately be, there is a huge part of me that's like, yeah, we need it. The regulation has got to be there. This is going to be, we're all going to, but there's also a part of me that's like, it's way too late. You're trying to defuse a bomb that's already gone off. How are you going to, where are you in this camp? Do you think we need regulation? Do you think we need to push for that? Or is this one of those, I don't know. Like, I still don't know enough about it to be able to judge.
No, I do think we need regulation, but it has to be extremely careful and surgical, because right now there is such a race internationally to excel in AI and to lead in AI that you don't want to put such onerous regulation or sort of these blanket regulations where somebody who doesn't understand AI or doesn't understand how tech works is just like, you shouldn't do this, right? Because every now and then you see a regulation that's really crazy. Like that technically wouldn't even be feasible or enforceable.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
So you want to make sure that you've got something that is surgical, is aware, that is not going to keep innovation from occurring. But I do think that we need some level of regulation around. It is a new technology, and we do need to have some level of transparency and accountability so that those of us who are consuming AI understand what that AI is doing, how it's treating our data, how reliable it is, all of these kinds of important questions. So I think we need some, but it has to be done very, very carefully and strategically, and hopefully with a lot of input, so that the regulators understand how to adopt regulations that are viable, and not just sort of like, never have anybody's private data in there, or sensitive data. And it's like, well, if somebody enters the sensitive data, that's limiting the functionality of the system.
Well, and not only that, I mean, sensitive data, I mean, depending on who you talk to, it's highly subjective. What sensitive data is. You know what I'm saying? So, okay. So what talent or workforce related trend within enterprises, companies, large and small, I guess, what sort of trend or talent do you see becoming the defining factor, or a defining factor as to whether or not the AI model is working in your company? Am I making sense there? Is there a trend that you could see emerging, or talent that you could see emerging, where it's like, yeah, our AI infrastructure is working well here at our company?
Yeah, I mean, I think overall the trends we're going to see for security and for just general AI is we've got to see people becoming more AI aware of how the technology works, and what happens with the training data, how much they need to be trained, how expensive it is. So I think all of that's going to really matter, and I think the people that are going to really emerge, or people that are going to as very helpful here, are going to be able to match up what it is that the business needs to do with AI with what the technology can do and how to secure that technology. Yeah. Because somebody who doesn't understand what the business is trying to do, or tries to get in the way of the business, I don't think that's going to be great long term. But yeah, so it's going to be people that can talk to the business, understand what it is they're trying to accomplish, and then give them ways to do it that's going to
support them.
Yeah,
right?
Support them. Exactly.
Yeah. So I would assume that the same applies for model risk management, right? There's really not a lot of difference there. Is there little nuances or little things that you would change for AI cybersecurity, or is what you just said that applies across the board?
Well, I think, for model risk management, we're going to continue, and we've seen this area maturing. Organizations are now, they're scanning their models before they use them, before they train them, to understand, if there's anything that may be risky with that model, especially if you downloaded it from a public repository, making sure that somebody hadn't pickled some, malicious Python code in there, for example. But then also with the models, there's something from CSA called a risk rubric, and that can help you understand the reputation of that model. So I do think that, understanding what models you're using is going to matter a lot before you actually start training them or retraining them and putting them into production. And then also monitoring those models, monitoring your AI in use to ensure that it's performing as expected.
Man, that's cool, isn't it? The risk rubric, the scorecard that you can give yourself. It's such a cool idea. I love that CSA is doing this. It's got a lot of traction.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah,
it's
cool. Really, it is good. I mean, we've had it for so long with software. Even if you go to GitHub, you see how many stars a project might have.
Right.
So it was really long overdue. So yeah, it's great. CSA is CSA also just they just put out a threat model around AI too, and I mean, sorry, for the cloud. It's just really good, all the work that CSA is doing.
I was working in open source software before coming over to cybersecurity, and it was amazing. We based a huge metric for our success was how many stars we had in GitLab, right? Which, I guess if you've got to measure somewhere, that's what you're going to do. But yeah, I hear you there. Okay, so what about AI agents and autonomous systems? We talk a lot about that, you and I, throughout our work week, right?
Yeah.
So when you're talking about AI systems AI agents and autonomous systems, reshaping threat detection and model mentoring in the next year, what's that reshaping going to look like? I know that's a big question, right? But if you can simplify that for everybody, I think people would be grateful as they're learning all of, people are drinking from a fire hose with this. So what does that look like in 2026?
Yeah, so I'm actually really very excited about generative AI here.
Okay.
We talk a lot about its LLM and generative AI. LLMs are generative AI. They're non-deterministic, so you don't know what's coming out of them, but they're very good with kind of weird, fuzzy, confusing things that are context heavy.
Right.
And traditionally in threat detection, that's been one of our problems, is that, way back, going back decades, we would do threat detection based on, like regex, regular expressions. We were just kind of trying to pattern match something very, very, very specific. Uh-huh. And then even with predictive models, they tended to be a little bit brittler than how human beings operating on networks, we're crazy, like in a great way. Human beings we can be extremely unpredictable even when we're not doing anything anomalous. So even with traditional predictive systems, it could be sometimes hard to really match or understand the wonderful, messy behavior of the average human beings. And when you're trying to watch like 100,000 of them on your network, it could be really hard with these. So I think that's one of those nice things, is that context heavy behavior of real attacks and the way that real humans act. Gen AI agents are much better at handling that complexity and being able to distinguish between this is what a human that is actually working at the company and doing and being kind of just a human, and this is a bad human doing a bad thing. Right. Or in the case of recently, this is a bad AI doing a bad thing, because we now know from Anthropic's report this week that there are a lot of campaigns that are being fully automated. So I think that's really exciting, is that Gen AI can help there, and it's good. It's very timely, because as the bad guys are scaling up using AI to attack, we're going to be able to use AI to defend more. And I think as far as specifically how you'll see that play out, we're already seeing it. There are already companies that are not replacing tier one analysts. There was a lot of discussion about tier one analysts and threat hunters. Yeah. Would they be replaced entirely by AI? But what's starting to emerge, and I'm actually pretty happy, is that they're working side by side. So rather than you get this kind of an alert that you don't know if it's something, if it's not, it comes out of AWS or comes out of Azure, you get an alert and you have to then go research it all and figure out what's happening. The AI is giving you sort of, this is my take. Here's the alert. I've already done an investigation. This is my take. So the human being can start there and
take the baton and run with it, right? Yeah.
Right. if the AI was right, great. The human goes in, validates it, everything's okay. If the AI was wrong as they're doing the investigation, then they may need to do some additional, and they can even ask the AI, go look here, go look at this other place. So I think that that's really kind of some of the great things that I think we're gonna see, coming out. Also, AI may be getting a little bit better at taking all the different, because it's still in a lot of companies, we've been trying to solve this since literally the turn of the century.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The problem of various alerts coming in and trying to kind of like connect them and stitch them together.
How
So
real is it?
the initial SIMs, that was what we were trying to do at the turn. I'm not kidding. 99, 2000.
Yeah.
For anybody that's managed a SIM, we're not exactly perfectly as there yet as we'd like.
Yeah.
But again, I think this is a place where we could see Gen AI really kind of reshape and be able to stitch all these different alerts together and normalize them and bring them together in a way that might be a little bit more coherent than we've had.
You just opened the door to like 50 questions. I've got this buffet, this beautiful Vegas buffet of questions that I can ask you here. So I've got two that are kind of stuck in my head. First of all, I read an article. This was just I think 2 weeks ago, that talked about how AI will never completely replace humans in pretty much any field. At any level, because the one thing that AI is and humans are not is predictable. AI is predictable. The entire thing is based on prediction, right? The entire thing is based on like recognizable patterns that it's scouring and doing the math on. We've talked about that in previous episodes. Humans are highly, highly unpredictable. That's the one thing that you can bank on, is that they're unpredictable. So.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I guess what I would say with that is that there's prediction and, probability, statistical probability.
Right.
And then there's predictable. And what's interesting about generative AI is that it's not predictable in the sense that you could give it the same prompt. You could ask it the same question 5 times in a row, and it could give you 5 different answers. They might be close, but I've been very surprised, even on, very recent, very new models. Sometimes it'll like take like a hard turn at Pismo Beach, and you're like, wow, did not expect that, AI. Yeah. Okay. So you can't always predict what they're going to say, but what they say is predictive in the sense that it's using the training data that it had to come up with something that's a statistically probable example.
So you would agree and disagree based on that article that I saw.
Well, what I would say about humans is that we are unpredictable in the sense that we can come up with something entirely new. A human can be sitting there and we talked about this last time. A human might say, I don't think that the sun is revolving around the earth, or I don't think the earth is flat. I actually think, so a human can come up with they can do these really amazing flights of fancy and just have these very expanded, back to thinking about my KPMG days where it was like, do you think outside the box, right? Humans can be very good at thinking outside the box and being very, very original. And AI is creating things based on the training data it has. And you might say, because at one point Sam Altman, somebody was like, AI is a stochastic parrot. And Sam Altman's like, I'm a stochastic parrot. In the sense that
I love that.
Yeah, in the sense of you could say that we are just our training data too, and we're just coming up with things based on our training data.
Yeah.
But, which is a lot of where you get into when people are like, maybe AI could be sentient. But at this point, right, what we're seeing is AI takes the data it's been trained on and comes out with something that's, predictable in the sense of you could understand why most of the time it comes out with the response it does. And it doesn't really think about these very, very outside, somebody looking around and saying, I don't think the earth is flat. You can understand why people did, right? It all looks pretty flat when you look at, especially, parts, actually Vegas has all those beautiful mountains around, but like the strip and stuff, right? You're pretty flat.
Yeah.
Thinking of that, we're really sitting on a giant ball is like a really strange thought. But so that's it. So I think that's why humans are still. Also, the other thing is that we do have the sense of sort of knowing right and wrong, whereas AI doesn't, and empathy, which is something that is huge. I mean, it's human beings have, evolved over thousands of years to be able to trust each other, to care for each other, to support each other.
Right.
And all of that, a big foundation is empathy. A lot of tech companies even hire on things like emotional IQ, right? How people, and all that is not in the AI at all yet.
Yeah. That's becoming an increasingly big factor too. Because AI can do what it does is they look for the intangibles too. Do you have experience in AI? Great, but what are the other intangibles? How well do you gel with everybody? How much empathy do you have? How responsive are you to your Slacks? Right? That's
exactly.
Okay, so the other question of like these 50 that I had, based on what you were talking about, is man, and I want to be able to ask this the right way. What do you anticipate the biggest risk priorities in 2026? I guess that's how I can just truncate this because it's huge, right? How are companies going to be preparing for these different risk priorities that are going to happen in 2026? I know it's a massive question. It's actually hard to ask, but as I can only imagine like what you're trying to answer that when it comes to risk priorities.
So the interesting thing about risk is that if you're in cybersecurity, you tend to say everything's risk, everything's related to cyber ultimately.
True.
And quite frankly, nowadays, that's kind of true. I mean, what company could survive without having a massive digital component to what they do?
Sure.
But the biggest risk to a business and even to an organization is that it doesn't, it's not sustainable. And most of the time, what that comes out to in a business is that you're not earning enough to continue to succeed. And that may be if you're a public company that needs to hit a certain growth margin and number.
As all public companies do, right? Yeah.
Right. So basically, said another way, every company's like real success factor is, did you make money or not?
Right.
So the biggest risk to any company is not hitting that mark, is not staying in the black, not growing at the rate that they need to. Mm-hmm. So when I think about cybersecurity, I think about first, where is the growth going to be in most businesses? Okay. And so, because it's the risk, that's the big risk, right? Cyber is supposed to be there to help ensure that they can meet that big risk of being profitable, of growing, of hitting those corporate goals. Mm-hmm. So, right now, it feels like to be successful, to continue to grow, a lot of companies need to really figure out how to monetize AI. Because the sort of the FOMO that's going out there is that companies are creating much more automated workflows, efficient workflows. They're changing the dynamic of how they hire and who they hire. They're looking at optimizing, basically getting their ROI out of AI. So I think that one of the biggest risks for cybersecurity is not understanding what it is the business is trying to do next year to grow, because right now, and it's probably going to be very AI related, and not being able to catch up with them and be able to ensure that they can do what they need to do. So I think all cybersecurity teams should really be very much talking to the business, finding out what those priorities are for next year. I bet there's a lot of AI, and then figuring out how quickly they can build ways for the organization to adopt AI without putting the company at excessive risk.
Yeah, and to me, that's almost man, you're dipping your toe in the bubble pool there a little bit, in my opinion, because you have all of these VCs and all of this money that people. I mean, you know this. You're an AI company. People want to invest. They want to invest. So many people are throwing money at AI companies. Eventually that check comes due. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about in terms of growth, right? So a lot of these companies over the past, I would say, 24 months, maybe 36 months, they got to start getting some traction at some point. And if they don't, they're going to start going away. And that's the bubble burst. Is that what you're referring to there? Or are you talking about something different entirely?
I'm talking about every company.
All of it. Okay.
Yeah, every single company has some kind of a mandate to grow. And right now, if you read the trades, you look at any business, reporting, it's that the way to grow is through AI. So I think, but I completely agree with you that that AI has to have an ROI. And I think that's where people worry about the bubble. Because if it takes us $10 million to automate a process, and that would cost us $1 million to do manually or old school automation, right? Old school software automation. Right. And then we need another $5 million worth of people who are data scientists to continue managing that automation. And before we were paying $500,000, right? I mean, like, so the math has to math. The ROI has to be there.
Well, and right now it hasn't.
And I think that's what people are worried about with the bubble. Yeah. Okay. Which, this could be it. I mean, I think 2026, we're starting to see people really, that I've seen certainly in 2025, massive strides from the immediate, the 2022 of like, oh my gosh, what is this stuff? Right. To this is how we use this in a business, and this is how we're going to make this repeatable and actually efficient for us. Yeah.
And then that opens the door, as horrible as it is, that then all the regulation comes in, and then you have to change your model, and you have to do, you know what I mean? So you barely start getting it figured out, you barely start getting the growth, and then you're going to have to change everything again, potentially, right? Am I right there or no? You don't think so?
Well, hopefully not. I mean, again, if you look at a lot of the regulations, they really are talking about transparency, about controls, and you should be building in transparency and controls.
Like you should have that
anyway. Okay. And have discoverability, observability within your system, have governance. So know when people are bringing on new systems, what kinds of systems are bringing on, where they got the models from, all of that. You could build that all in right now. That's going to help you to help the business go faster without being at too much risk. And it'll probably put you in really good position when and if more of the AI regulation enforcement comes into play.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's say, the ball drops. It's 2026. Yay, we're all optimistic. Yay. 2026 is going to be fantastic. Then you have your first kind of work meeting. It's an all hands. If we're using corporate jargon, it's an all hands. Everybody get together and let's figure this out for the year. What big risk in terms of AI, or what bold move? I don't know. Yeah, risk is I don't like that term. What bold move should all companies make to strengthen their AI posture for 2026? Like when your CISO sits down with the entire team and says, here's what we're going to do. What do you think every company, because a hard question, across the board, what should they all do?
Yeah, and it really goes to sort of what we've already were talking about, which is to step back, take a breath, and build that transparency and control and governance into the system. And the reason that I think it feels a little bit uncomfortable or disruptive is that, there's this sense. I had when I was very early in my career, the first time I managed a global network, the president of the company came into me at one point and asked me why he couldn't, this is laughable almost now, why he couldn't attach a 10 megabyte PowerPoint to an email. And I said, well, because we actually had our server, we had just gotten a 1 gig mail server. And I was like, that's why, is that you're going to be filling up. So we have to have limits, and the system can't handle it. And he sat there and he just looked at me. He goes, you're holding me back. You're holding me back. Really? You're holding me back. And I was like, Jeff, I'm really not. Like, that's just but in any case,
you're holding me back.
I think that's, when you say something like, hey, we have to build a process in here, some kind of a life cycle management process, a lot of times you get you're holding me back, especially in AI, because a lot of executives think the AI can just magically fix itself. Yeah. But no, it's not disruptive. And just like with secure software development, secure AI adoption and deployment is absolutely, if you create process now, and a structured process where you've got continuous discovery, supply chain due diligence, runtime guardrails, all of this, ongoing, management, all of this work actually is going to mean that you can adopt faster and more consistently and beat your competition, because you're coming from a space that you've got a solid platform to do that rapid experimentation. So it may feel to the executives that it's a little uncomfortable, but genuinely it's gonna, just as companies that built strong SDLC processes and realized, oh my gosh, and then started to automate more and more, that they could go faster, you're gonna find that too with AI, I believe.
Okay. Well, and I have to say, because you are the CISO for Noma Security, if you'd like to know more about what Diana's talking about or what Noma Security can provide for you in terms of a service, as you're talking about all this, it's really not that hard if you're taking the right steps, right? If you're looking at your infrastructure the right way, and Noma Security can help you do that. Diana can help you do that, right? I don't want to be too much of a shill, but it's like, just go to noma.security and they'll get you sorted out pretty quick, right?
I don't want to say this is easy. I mean, there's some work involved, but no, this is such an important, it's such an important motion that organizations need to do within companies. And I mean, that it's why we exist as a company. We're a pretty new company. It's because the founders realized somebody needed to help companies adopt AI in a secure way, and that's why I came here. So we're all believers, that's why we do this. Yeah,
and I'm of the opinion if you haven't already started on this to some degree, you're already way behind the curve, and you need to catch up. No matter what the size of your company, you need to have this.
But it's never too late. The best time to start is now if you haven't. So
thank you, because that sounded really ominous what I said. Turn off the lights, unplug everything, you're done.
Right.
No, that's not what I was implying.
The bullet train's out of the station, which is true. The bullet train's going, but it's better to get started if you haven't. It's better to get started.
Very good. Yeah. All right. Well, good. Well done with the predictions, Madam Diana. That's it. That's very good. I'm going to go look up some Disney Seas now, because now you piqued my curiosity. But in the meantime, while you're going to Noma.security and I'm going to Disney, Tokyo Disney Seas online anyway, to check everything out, if you have any questions for Diana and I, you can always follow Diana or I on LinkedIn. You can hit us up there. Follow Noma Security on LinkedIn while you're at it, will you? And, we're really prompt. And not only that, with Noma Security, I'm one of the guys that's in there. So, if you have any questions, it's as simple as me sending Diana a Slack and saying, hey, help. And we'll get you squared away. So thank you, Diana. For the rest of you, be sure to check back every Tuesday for another episode of Unprompted. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us. To learn more about how Noma Security can unlock the power of AI for your business, go to noma.security and be sure to join Diana and Chunga next Tuesday for another episode of Unprompted.